Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Pom Poko. It's a Studio Ghibli film by Miyazaki. So, as always, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the furry. To start with the furry, it's literally a movie starring raccoons. So, all of the furry, just all of the furry. It's all furry. Okay? Moving on to the good, the bad. So, I love Studio Ghibli. I love most of their movies. There are some that I like more than others, and some that I don't really care for. And I watched this movie, or I rewatched this movie, because I remember it being about like raccoons and some construction sites and some anthropomorphized raccoons, and I was just like, I watched it once. Why don't I really remember it? So I rewatched it, and now I realize why I've only watched this one once, and I've watched a lot of the other ones multiple times because I don't like this one. So thumbs down for this one. Okay, so let me list the ways. To start off with, the it doesn't understand what movie it wants to be because there's a narrator and it skips over timelines. So it almost wants to be like a documentary, like either a nature documentary or like the just ones where it's like, oh, and now spring is coming and the animals begin their blah blah blah, and yeah, it has that aspect going to it of like skipping through times and seasons and years or whatever. But then you're also directly like watching at some points the raccoons doing their things, and some of them are having lives and interacting and like having kids and raising babies, and then we'll stop tracking them. We'll stop tracking those people and go follow other people or people raccoons. You get what I'm saying? And it's like, okay, but what about those? Like, is this story about them or not about them? And what happened to these? It doesn't understand what it wants to be. The pacing is whack. I couldn't connect with any of the characters because some of them just didn't differentiate themselves enough. And then the narrator just like verbalizes everything and doesn't leave anything to the imagination. And it every time there's something, the fighting raccoon guy, he wants to fight, and then he does this awesome cool thing where he's about to usurp authority, and then it turns out raccoons just want to eat. Oh, you're right. Yeah, so now we're not gonna, and then we're just gonna breeze over, and like there was this whole scene of him usurping power, taking over, and bringing in his like Praetorian guards type of thing, and then they were like, but you see, we're just hungry. He's like, you're right. Okay, continue on with your meeting, and then they just continued on. It's like, what the fuck? What are you talking? What are you doing? No, that's. And then so I don't know a lot about Japanese versions of raccoons or raccoon dogs or whatever these things are supposed to be exactly. But it's very distracting that all of the male raccoons have balls. It's an animated movie that really takes some liberties by, lowering down the detail because it's not 3D animation where you're trying to look photorealistic. It is animated. It dumbs down the details of a lot of things to make the animation work. You could have done that by just not having the balls. But you had to have the balls, didn't you? And it is and not only that, but they shoot it like down at the waist level a lot. So it's like center screen, these balls. Now, I think that maybe it's just the like American translation to be like, oh yeah, that's their pouch. Like, I know that kangaroos have pouches. I know that nifflers have pouches. I don't know that raccoons have pouches to store things in. So I don't know if they were just using that term so that you're not like, oh, so they're just hitting people with blown up versions of their balls. Okay, sure, yeah. So I don't know, but regardless, they don't look like pouches. They look like balls. You could just not have animated them, and then whenever they needed to stuff something or hit something, they could have just grown the particular shape they need, but they didn't. So, yeah, did not care for that. And as you might have guessed from some of the things that I've been saying, the storyline is about these raccoons that are in this forest, and they have transforming capability, but it doesn't make it clear for way too long exactly how these transformations work, in my opinion. They do eventually explain it, but it's very confusing first few minutes, especially that like, okay, is this just in somebody's head? Is it like pretending? Is it just anime overemphasizing things? So you finally learn that like, oh no, that is actually like they are doing those transformations in real time, so to speak. It's not just how animes will sometimes do like the chibi like thing. Like, no, it's not that. It's they are doing those because these raccoons can transform. So, yeah, that was fine. But the other thing that I didn't like about this movie is that it's very depressing. It's not Grave of the Fireflies depressing, because I don't think anything could be that depressing, but it's not a fun, happy movie. Like they try to intersperse humor into it, and they try to have the characters be funny or kooky or whatever, and some of the like action scenes be kooky, but you straight up see one of the characters get run over by a car. You hear the impact, you see it happen, and then they run over, and there's like blood and shit. Like this is not a movie that I would be like, yeah, this is great for kids, because it's fucking depressing. And how it's depressing is that it's about the inevitable expansion of human existence into what would otherwise be foresty or just like nature territory. Like, that's what it is. That's the storyline. So if you were like, hey, Fern Gully is a happy-go-lucky movie, then maybe you'll think this movie is. If you were like, hey, you know all that sad implications and sadness that happened in Avatar, yeah, I want more of that. Because that's what this movie is it's a 2-hour movie, and it is like from moment one the humans are encroaching on the land of these raccoons, and they are just vainly trying to stop it, and it never lets up with a just a simmering level. Like, there are spikes, but there is just a simmering level of sadness throughout this whole movie, which I did not sign up for, do not like, not a fan. There was no like hopefulness in this movie. It was just like, hey, human expansion fucks up environments. Isn't that bad? It's bad. KK. So, yeah, yeah, it had a bit of that Fern Gully vibe to it. Just very sad. Just, yep. Animation was fine. I mean, it's Miyazaki. He does overall good work. Like, the Studio Ghibli does good work. And, yeah, so that's fine. The music's okay. Like, they have some beautiful scenery, but the pacing's confusing. There's some shots where you're like, when is this? What is this? What's going on here? So, yeah, I just did not care for this movie, and there's a reason that I only watched it the one time, and now I'm making this record of it, so next time I'm like, why haven't I watched Pom Poko? Oh, this is your hint. Don't rewatch it again. It's sad and weird and depressing and distracting. So yeah, that's did you like it? Did it blow your socks off? Did it make you feel happy on the inside? Let me know in the comments down below. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the next one. Bye.